I am now going to do the video that I wish I would have been able to find when I was trying to buy a new MacBook Pro. There are a lot of great videos out there and they cover a lot of things, but I just wanted to kind of compare what about my old Intel i9 versus the M1 versus an M2 brand new one versus maybe even a Windows computer with a bunch of Ryzen and nVidia chips on there. So I couldn't find that video, so I'm providing that one, and maybe that will help somebody else as much as, well, it didn't help me because it wasn't out there, but now I know I'm sharing this information. I was going to do something like, in this corner we have, in this corner, but that's so cliche now. Everyone's done that, and it also seems like a lot of work, so I don't want to do that. Although it would have been four corners, and yeah, anyway, what I will do is discuss the actual computers that I was testing. The first one is a 2023 M2. This is a 14-inch with 32 gigabytes of RAM. I actually went up for the first time. And 1 terabyte SSD, 12 core. So I increased it just a bit from the base model, and I went with the 16 core GPU, which I guess is which comes along with it. So that is my most powerful MacBook. I also compared it against a 2021 M1 model, so which you can still buy, of course. And that's a 14-inch as well, 32 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabyte hard drive SSD, which I didn't know about, but I guess is okay because it's not doing that whole dividing thing. There's been problems with that if you get 512, the brand new one, but you probably already knew that. That one has a 10-core CPU and a 16-core GPU, so it's the same thing. I don't even know how much that one costs. It's a work computer, so I just decided to test it out really quickly and then uninstall the software. 2019 Intel i9 is the other one, and that's a 2.3 gigahertz and 8-core processor, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and that one comes, I upgraded a little bit back a couple years ago, AMD Radeon Pro 5500 8 gig, 1 terabyte SSD. Finally, we have a 2021 Windows computer. I bought it at the very beginning, so it's really 2020. 16 gigabytes of RAM, 1 terabyte SSD that has the Ryzen 9 3900 for the CPU and the GeForce RTX 3060 Ti with 8 gigabyte. So yeah, that one about $1,800, and that's a Windows computer, so it's running Microsoft Windows. So if I had to give a recommendation, of course, I don't know. It's like recommending when to have another kid. It's like, oh, I don't know when it's right, when, it's a good time to have crying every night. It just depends what you're using it for. I would say if you're just playing solitary and Minesweeper, then yeah, you can probably use something 20 years old. But if you're doing more, I think for Adobe Premiere, and this is why I upgraded with Adobe Premiere. I don't know, the renderings were just getting so slow, and just the timeline wasn't going fast with all the effects. So if you've got like 13 effects going on, you're probably gonna need something very powerful. As well, if you're doing Blender modeling and you're like rendering scenes like Moscow and ruins with fire and smoke, then yeah, more is better. But then again, that's what you have to kind of decide on the Windows computer as well. I mainly am just kind of deciding on recommending which MacBook to get, but if Blender is your niche, then yeah, Windows. So let's look at some Geekbench charts. Geekbench 5, I like it because it's free. And I went with the Intel i9 first, my old computer, and then the M2 2023, my brand new computer, the M1, yeah, a little bit older, and then of course the Windows. So there's not much to say here. You can look at the things and say the speed differences. Yeah, and this one higher is better, and yeah, the M2 over the Intel is just wow. Yeah, you're doubling the power. So otherwise, yeah, I mean the single CPU, yeah, I mean just there it is. There it is in I'd say black and white, but it's blue and red. Okay, now we have the CPU processing charts. This is from, again, Geekbench 5, Intel, and then the M2, and then go back in time to the M1, and then the Windows. And yeah, as far as, well, I'll start with OpenCL. Yeah, what is that, like a, I don't know, 80% jump from the i9. And I think it helps to see, well, what about if I just want to get the M1 and save a little bit of money? Say, okay, well, there you go. You can kind of see still pretty significant. But again, if you're using Blender and you're doing some rendering, that's just crazy. That is insane how much more powerful that dedicated graphics card is. And I should note that when we look at the metal metal for the Windows is technically CUDA in that place. So, and there was like the Vulkan too, but I just went with CUDA. Although, I mean, both of those things, OpenCL or CUDA is just wow. That's just crazy. And finally, this is for the people that really are going to be mainly using it for Blender. In this case, shorter is better. This is the time it took to render that nice little scene with the icebergs and the ship sailing into it. Very well designed scene. So that was the demo I downloaded and rendered. I will say with Blender, I love Blender, but sometimes Blender is like your drunk friend that, you know, after the bar at 2 a.m. doesn't know how to get home. You're too cheap to call him a cab, so you just kind of grab the shoulders and point in the right direction towards home. Blender is like that with your graphics. So you kind of load it up and fire it off, and it's not going to know the best way to go. So you have to actually go into the system preferences and just say for graphics and rendering, use your best card. And that for all machines, it just seems like it has no idea what to use. And then suddenly it'll say, oh, you've got some GPUs going on here. So it will. I say that because the first time I ran both tests on the M2 2023 and the 2021, I came back with like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and I thought, this is not good. It's lower than the i9, but once I adjusted it, then I got that. But I mean, look at that, the very end, 1 minute, 38 seconds. That just blows away. Well, I mean, I kind of already knew between the i9 and the Windows, but even the other ones, that's significant. So I would say if you are going to just use Blender and you don't mind having a Microsoft computer, then yeah, the Windows one. And as I said, I spec that out for like $18.25, and it served me pretty well. But I will say I don't even use it for Blender for the most part. I actually use the MacBook for a long time, and I get the scenes kind of ready to go, and then I move the files over and I do my rendering on the Windows. So I just, you know, I've got the iPhone, I've got so much invested into MacBooks now. I like MacBooks more, but for the power and the price, and you just cannot get Blender to the level on a MacBook. You can get it on a PC. So yeah, it's got to be PC for that. So yeah, if you can do both, that'd be great. But if you're really focused on Blender and you can only do one computer and you don't use iPads and iPhones and all that ecosystem stuff, then why not go with the route? And that is a desktop too, so I'm not bringing this with me on travel trips and vacations. So good to know. That's it. I hope that helps. I just wish I had that information when I was buying something, but I'm very happy with the new one, and it is quite powerful, but it's so expensive.